So now I'm sitting before agents and special agents, FBI agents, and they're basically sitting in chairs right before me. And they start telling me basically how important it is that I tell them the truth. And they basically tell me that, hey, um, you're not dealing with the state, you're dealing with the federal government now. And the difference between us and the state is that the federal government, we don't have to prove anything. We just need somebody to say your name. Whereas the state has to meet a burden of proof. And so I'm not comprehending all this stuff they're saying. All I know is that I came down here to answer some questions and tell them the truth. And that's what I planned on doing. So basically, they start giving me like this rundown of how, he basically worked for them for years and how he helped them take down so many different people, basically telling me don't believe the hype about him because he was on his hands and knees begging them, and that he did such a good job with them that they offered him a deal of a lifetime, a deal that no one that they ever knew ever got because of the work that he did. And so basically they saying, do you know anybody who commits a crime and only stays a night in jail? And so I was like, well, no, because I didn't even know anybody that was in jail. And so they're basically like, well, that's the deal that he got. So right now, we're not his friend. There's cameras and they're doing a little bit of writing. And so they're asking me question after question after question. And so I'm just telling them the truth, probably more than what they needed to know. I'm just telling them everything. And so at the end of this interview, they basically tell me, we're going to put him away for a very long time. The only thing we need for you to do is move on with your life. Leave him alone. Well, they shake my hand and everything, and they basically tell me that if we need any more information, we'll be in contact with you, but we think this is good enough. And so I'm like, okay. And so they walk me back out the same way that I came. My mom is waiting for me. I'm in a car, boohoo crying. And she's like, what did they tell you? And all this. And so I'm like, well, they just told me to move on with my life, that they're going to put him away for a long time. And so she was pretty much like, poor him, poor him. So now I'm basically back home, and he's calling the phone. Like, if it's a number that he'll never forget, it was my parents' number. And so he's calling over the phone. And so we're having these conversations over the phone, and he's basically telling me that, he's going to get out of this, he's going to fix this, and telling me how he's going to make everything right with me. A lot of stuff is going to change. And so I'm basically listening to all this stuff. And then I tell him, I said, the agents had me come down and I had to talk to them. And he was like, oh, you did? What did you tell them? And so I said, I basically told him the truth. I told him everything. He said, why would you go and do that? Do you not know what you just did to me? And so I'm pretty much like, no, what did I do? He was like, you just put me away. And so I'm pretty much like, well, I wasn't trying to put you away, but they were saying that I was going to go to jail if I didn't tell the truth. And I don't want to go to jail. He was like, they pretty much just sat there and they played with you. They wanted you to say that there was nothing that they could do to you if you would have said that those drugs were yours. Well, of course, then I didn't know I was being manipulated. Like, anyone who loves or cares about you would never ask you to say that you're guilty of something that you're not. And that's basically what I was sitting there doing. And then I was feeling really, really bad because I felt like now I had done something to him. And so he pretty much was telling me I need to come down there and I need to see him. And so I started going, make my regular visits once or twice a week to see him. And then I came one day and I see her down there. She's down there at the window talking to him when I walked up. And so I turned around and I went back outside, and I'm waiting for her to leave so I can go in there and I can talk to him now. And so I go in, I sit down, and I'm talking to him, and he's pretty much telling me, I need you to call the agents back. So he's now asking me to contact one of the agents that I had previously been interviewed by. And he's telling me I need to call the agent and tell the agent that he really needs to speak to them. Is it any kind of way they can come down there and speak to him? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to call them and I'm going to let you know what they say. So lo and behold, my stupid self at the time, I done called the agent on the phone, and I'm pretty much like, hi, how are you doing? At this time, I'm 21 years old. I still don't know a lot. And so the agent was pretty much like, he was on a stakeout right now while I was calling him. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, well, I was calling for, such and such. And he was like, okay, what do you need? And I was like, well, he said, can you come down there and talk to him, or send somebody to come and talk to him because he got some information. And lo and behold, the agent blows up on me. Tell that SOB we're not dealing with him anymore. We're not going to deal with him. This time we're putting him away. And so I'm pretty much like, okay, all right, thank you. Have a good day. And I hang up. So he calls me back later on that evening. I'm like, well, I spoke to the agent, and he was yelling on the phone and screaming. He said that to tell you that they're not playing with you, they're going to put you away. And so pretty much he got quiet, and he was like, well, okay, yeah, they probably just want me to sit up in here for a little while, and they're going to come and talk to me. Well, they actually never came to talk to him. Like, I literally visited with him in the jail for maybe like 9 months. Um, then eventually, I guess he was sentenced to 8 years, and he went off. So he went off to prison, and I didn't communicate with him past that point, because in our last meeting that we had, when I came to visit him and sit down with him, he was confronting me about a lot of stuff, that I heard this, I heard that. And like, of course he was in there, so I had to move on with my life. I was happy. It was the best time ever. I had new friends. I was able to hang out and just enjoy myself. And so I wasn't under the umbrella of him, and he didn't like that. And so he ended up going off to prison. I visited him one last time, and he's sitting there looking sad, telling me that he was so disappointed in me. He can't believe, after all the stuff that he's done for me, how I turned my back on him. And I hadn't turned my back on him. I answered the phone calls. I made the visits, even though, we weren't together anymore. And so he went off to prison, and my life went on. And then sometimes you just don't learn. He got out.